Welcome to this episode of Eureka, and we are going to have a very interesting and engaging conversation with Professor Sishen Dude, who is with the Department of Chemical Engineering, IIT Kharagpur. Before we continue this conversation, let's take a quick look at his brief profile. Keep watching Eureka. We are going to discuss about how what you studied in perhaps your middle school, filtration, is a very high technology today and has lots of application, can solve quite a bit of our problems. Keep watching Eureka.
A large fraction of Indian population in rural area is suffering from contamination of groundwater for drinking and cooking purposes. And contamination of groundwater by arsenic, fluoride and hardness is a major issue. Thus, cost-effective, sustainable treatment processes for removal of such pollutants is a major technological challenge, and it is an active area of research. Professor Sishen Dude, Faculty of Chemical Engineering, IIT Kharagpur, is working on these problems since last 20 years. A chemical engineer by profession, Professor Day has done his BTech, MTech and PhD from IIT Kanpur. He has an expertise in designing of low-cost water treatment facilities. To develop technology for ultra-low-cost spinning of polymeric hollow fibers and their application in various sectors like hemodialysis, fruit juice treatment, wastewater treatment are other major achievements of Professor Day. He developed and designed a laterite-based filter for removal of arsenic from groundwater and transferred this technology for commercialization. Similarly, he developed a special chemically treated carbon that can remove fluoride efficiently. He also designed and developed ultra-low-cost method to spin hemodialysis grade hollow fibers for dialysis as well as general filtration purposes. With such indigenous technology, the price of hemodialysis cartridge is envisaged to be reduced by 3 to 5 times. Majority of his research is supported by Department of Science and Technology, Government of India. Professor Day authored 270 papers in reputed international journals and has 15 patents in his credit and also transferred 4 technologies. For this, he has received many prestigious awards. Noted among them are Shanti Swaroop Bhatnagar Prize for Engineering Science and Abdul Kalam Technology Innovation National Fellowship.
It's a very interesting opportunity, and then you are working in an area which is perhaps I would say, even when I was talking to you before this episode conversation recording, it was very exciting. Let's start with the basics. Okay, I mean when we study in school, mixtures and substances is something that we study in our, maybe in our middle school, 6th, 7th, 8th or somewhere over there, and then we also study the various ways of separating it out. Right. And one of the ways that we talk about is filtration. So it's such a, I mean, if people would say that it's such a school science, it seems surprising that somebody like you is working on it in a top institute like IIT Kharagpur. What is there to work? What kind of challenges are there in filtration? After all, you need just a filter, right?
Generally, filtration involves separation of different size of particles. Now, in majority of the cases, the aqueous streams which are problematic to everyday life in drinking water, in river water, everywhere, there are pollutants which are dissolved in the aqueous stream, which are very minute in size. So, separation of those streams, of those pollutants from the aqueous stream is not an easy filtration work. It requires advanced filtration.
Okay. Yes. So, which means that it is not like something that, I mean the principle might be something similar to what we study in school, but then you need much more thinking, right?
Yes.
Okay, see, when we talk about filtration, I mean in our daily life we can only think of water, purifying,
yes,
because water has lots of pollutants, I need clean drinking water, this is the only thing that comes to our mind. But what is the big scope for actually the kind of area that you are working on, filtration? What are all the other kinds of areas in which we actually use this?
It has huge scope. It has application in water filtration, not only in drinking water. Apart from that, it can do wonders with the wastewater treatment.
Okay.
Yes,
That's
industrial wastewater treatment. In fact, several tanneries in Tamil Nadu, they have been closed down. They want to, because of the excessive use of water. Now they want to have a treatment plant which is a zero discharge treatment plant. So whatever the waste water that is generated, they used to treat it, and after that they will be utilizing it in the plant itself as a process water. So therefore there is no discharge from this treatment unit. So that is called a zero discharge plant. Now in majority of the polluting industries, for example textile, tanneries, and paper and pulp, petroleum wastewater treatment plants, all these they are basically aiming for zero discharge plant. So there are several stages of filtration in a typical treatment unit. They are known as primary treatment, secondary treatment and tertiary treatment. In primary treatment, what they do, they use a quartz filtration and they take away the larger size particles. Okay. And the secondary treatment, they use some aeration or some activated sludge process, so that any organics that is present in the system, they will be eaten up by some of the bacteria. So it's a large scale operation. And after secondary treatment, the lean water, still it will be having some of the pollutants, and those pollutants are quite recalcitrant, okay, and they are very difficult to be removed. So in that case, the tertiary treatment processes are required, where the membrane filters can do a very proactive role. And after that, the filtration, the water that has been generated, it can be either discharged or can be reused as a process water in the industry.
So let's come to your particular work. I mean, you have been in this field for about 20 years now. Suppose if I ask you, like, list me 3 major innovations that you did in your 20 years of career, what would you list them as?
Yeah, I'll be talking about a couple of innovative and indigenous technologies that have been developed by our group and has been commercialized and are having a great potential for future commercialization. The first one I'll be talking about the arsenic.
Arsenic.
Yeah.
Arsenic is a major problem in many parts of the country, right? Like, where are the major arsenic problem in groundwater is there?
So actually the arsenic problem in India was first detected in 1982.
Okay.
Long back.
Yeah.
And generally arsenic, the origin of arsenic is from the rocks. Typically arsenic is bound to the rocks in the form of producing compound and complexes with the iron and aluminum, which are present in the rock in general. And over the period of weathering, intrusion of the seawater, reduction of the rainwater, use of phosphate fertilizer, the arsenic iron and arsenic aluminum bonds, they get broken up, arsenic gets released and come to the groundwater.
Okay.
So generally arsenic concentration in the groundwater was increasing every year, and we are very unlucky that we have been born in an era where the arsenic concentration has exceeded the WHO permissible limit, that is 10 microgram per liter. So herein lies the problem of arsenic in last 50 years that have been identified in various
So one of the point that you are making is that there might be natural way in which, for example, arsenic might be in water, but because also our use of fertilizers and others, we are also actually making the rocks release arsenic to the groundwater. Is that right?
Exactly.
Okay.
So if you look into where the arsenic contamination in groundwater is occurring, so if you look all the river basins starting from Punjab, Haryana, all the states down West Bengal along the river Ganges, Brahmaputra, all the river basin of Brahmaputra, Ganges and Yamuna. So you have the arsenic contamination in India.
Okay.
Around 990 million, more than 900 million people in the whole world have been exposed to the arsenic contamination. The plains of Bangladesh is adversely affected by the arsenic contamination in groundwater. The WHO limit is 10 microgram per liter. Arsenic contamination in the concentration in the groundwater should be less than that.
Okay.
But in some places in Bangladesh, it is 1500 microgram per liter.
10 and 1500. That's a kind of difference.
There's a kind of difference. Not only that, all the South Asian countries, like starting from Philippines, Cambodia, Vietnam, Sri Lanka, Maldives, there is arsenic problems. Nepal also there is arsenic problems. All sub-Saharan countries in North American and Southern American countries, in fact, it is said that after Second World War, it is a natural calamity, arsenic contamination in groundwater. So that becomes a major
So how
problem.
did you take up this challenge?
So we started to look into we started work in 2003. We started to see why there are 3 districts in West Bengal. First we looked into our state in West Bengal. all the 7 districts along the Ganges, they have been adversely affected with the arsenic problem. The maximum concentration reached around 700 microgram per liter in Murshidabad.
Okay.
And all the three districts near our college, West Midnapur, Bankura and Purulia, we do not have the arsenic problem. Then we thought that it might be the nature of the soil. So we analyzed the nature of the soil in these affected districts and unaffected districts.
Okay.
We have seen in the affected district is the alluvial soil. On the other hand, in our place, the soil is lateritic soil. Lateritic soil contains lots of iron and alumina. That's why it's a basically red colored soil. So, and iron and alumina are the compounds which can absorb or arrest arsenic to a great extent.
Okay.
So, in these 3 districts, we have a natural protection, God-gifted protection. On the other hand, these 7 districts across the Ganges, they have been exposed to the arsenic problem.
Okay.
Moreover, since these plains are very fertile, the agriculture is very advanced stage. So people use lots of phosphate fertilizer, and phosphate is one of the main culprit when it goes with the runoff water along the soil. When it hits any iron, arsenic, iron, aluminum bonds bound to the rock, they open it up. They just break it down, and arsenic get released and come to the groundwater, increasing its concentration every year. Now, what we did, we analyzed the lateritic soil near our place and found out it contains some arsenic removal capacity. But although it's very small, one of the major material that is used nowadays for the arsenic removal is activated alumina. Now, what we did, we have seen that there is a potential of this laterite, which is a naturally occurring material, and it's not a synthetic material. So, and there are queries after queries available in different parts of West Bengal, Orissa, Deccan Plateau, or the lateritic soil. So, therefore, it's a natural resource. So, what we did after that, we did some chemical treatment so that its arsenic absorption capacity increased several folds.
Okay.
And it has been increased 3 times to the activated laterite. So, therefore, we have found out that this is really a good material, and we have and in order to find out the lateritic soil from which location we should take, whether we should take it from Deccan Plateau or whether we should take it from our Kharagpur region or Orissa region. Then we found out one quotient. It's basically a measure of iron, silica divided by iron and aluminum oxide.
Okay.
So, if this ratio is less than 0.4, then this material is a very good material for the
That's the best one for
absorption.
removing the
Yes,
arsenic.
that is the baseline. So, if you give me laterite from 3 different geographical locations, I will do one EDX analysis that will take 5 minutes in my laboratory, and I will just evaluate this quotient. This is known as degree of lateritization, and if it turns out to be less than 0.4, then this can be a very good material for the arsenic removal.
Okay. So, your filter is made out of this material.
Yes. So, we prepared a loose bed having different composition. So, we use activated charcoal for removal of the organics and the ordering materials from water. We use a raw laterite bed above it so that some arsenic is removed upfront, so that the actual bed will be having a long life. Then you put the actual treated laterite, which takes away the arsenic completely, and then you put a bacteriostatic carbon layer, which removes the bacteria almost completely. And since this material contains lots of iron, it is having a very good antibacterial property.
Okay.
So it can remove the bacteria as well. So we prepared a filter, and in the filter, at the upfront we separate out iron. Okay, so iron is basically removed by several ways. There are very common ways. One is the alarm treatment, that is very common. Second one is one can use some agent like manganese oxide coated sand that oxidizes iron, converts into ferric hydroxide, so it will be deposited and can be separated out.
Yeah.
There can be aerial oxidation. Aerial oxidation also, iron oxide can be deposited, can be separated out. So putting an iron removal unit up front, then we prepared our filter. So our filter can remove arsenic, iron and microorganism together in one shot.
So, then you get a good pure water,
Pure
which
water.
is potable.
Absolutely potable, free of arsenic, and the design is made, and I'm a chemical engineer, so we have designed a filter such that its concentration of arsenic in the filtered water will be much less than 10 microgram per liter. That is the acceptable limit of WHO.
So, better. So, now this technology you have developed, what happened to this technology?
Yes. So, you see the time period that is required to take it to the ground, from the laboratory to the ground. In the laboratory, we started the work in 2003. The first material we developed around 2006. And the first working prototype filter, domestic type, that will be having a capacity around 50 liter per day. That was deployed in 2011. In 2012, and it got a very promising result. In 2012, we got a funding from UNICEF. We put up a bigger unit, 500 liter per day demonstration unit in one of the schools in affected areas in West Bengal.
Okay.
That is still running for last 6 years. And it's giving wonderful water, wonderful result. And the salient feature of this filter is that we do not require any regeneration like any other filter. So it has a long life. It has a life of 7 years minimum.
Okay.
Number one. Number two is that for the domestic filter can run without any electricity in any remote village. It does not require any maintenance. Does not require it requires absolutely no maintenance during its lifetime. And the most striking feature is that the material that can be the material that is generated after its life will be over, the sludge they call it. Sludge disposal is another big problem.
Yeah, usually.
Okay? So what we do, it's a green material. The arsenic is adsorbed to this material by a strong bond known as chemisorption. So it satisfies a toxicology leaching protocol, that is an international protocol. So if any material satisfies this protocol, that simply indicates that over different weathering conditions, the heavy metal or arsenic that is adsorbed into it will not leach out and repollute the groundwater.
So you can even just throw it out. There is no need for.
Yes, actually this material is traditionally used for road laying. So this can be used for the road laying purposes. It can be used as a mix-up for preparation of the pavement blocks. So there are various uses, and there is no leaching of arsenic from there.
From this. This is
So since the material is natural material, there is no production cost of it. So the technology itself is ultra low cost. The cost is 2 paisa per liter. That is the filtered water.
Okay.
Filtered water. And so it was put into display for demonstration for last 6 years. In 2006, the technology was transferred to a company for commercialization. In 2016, second half, it has been transferred to another company called Mandal Precisions Private Limited. They are basically government vendors. So what they did, they put up plants of 2 meter cube per hour capacity in affected areas, and those are catering a village each. So till now there are 14 such units have come up, and around 30 more are coming up in the next year, and they are setting up a unit which will be having a capacity of 132 meter cube per hour. That will be catering 3-4 villages together. Still, that is under construction. So it's a very good success there in the state of West Bengal.
That's a very, very interesting story of how we can tackle our problems if we apply science and technology in a right way and then in an ingenious way. We'll take a very short break. Keep watching Eureka. We'll come back in a very short time. Welcome back to Eureka. We are having a very wonderful conversation with Professor Srishendu De, who is from Chemical Engineering Department of IIT Kharagpur. We have been talking about how you have been using this idea of filtration to solve a very important problem of arsenic in many parts of the country, which has risen and which became a major problem from 1980s. The other area in which you have worked is in the area of trying to develop a cartridge for dialysis machines, right? So what was the challenge? Where are we now?
So basically for the hemodialysis purposes, we require the hemodialysis cartridges. There is a particular medical specification of this cartridge. This cartridge will be containing lots of hollow fibers, polymeric hollow fibers of particular portions distribution.
So basically it also acts like a filter, so that when you pass the
blood
right? It removes the, it functions like a kidney, right?
Correct.
So
it's like an artificial kidney. So it removes it retains all the blood cells and serum albumin, and it removes urea and creatinine.
That's what you does too. Okay.
And the medical specification of these fibers is that its internal diameter has to be in the range of 180 to 225 micron, and wall thickness has to be 35 to 40 micron. Without that, if you use any other hollow fiber, doctors will not accept it at all. And in a cartridge, there are 7,000 of such fibers to be packed up in one cartridge, so that a filtration area of 1 meter square, roughly about 1 meter square, will be available. So in our body, we are having 5.5 liter of blood roughly. So if you talk about the residence time inside the cartridge, if you really calculate, so more with the residence time, there will be a problem of blood coagulation. Although they inject heparin during the hemodialysis, but if doctors say that if the residence volume should be less than 75 ml, then it is accepted. Now, if you really calculate how many fibers will be there and what will be the diameter, etc., you just simply make 75 ml is equal to n into pi d square by 4 into L. L is typically 20 centimeter. And if you really back calculate D turns out to be 200 micron. So that is the magic figure why it has to be between 180 to 225 micron internal diameter. And wall thickness 35 to 40 micron is another important parameter, because if the wall thickness is less, then during the blood pressure fluctuation of the body, that is around 2 atmosphere and 2.5 atmosphere, the fibers may rupture open.
Okay.
If they rupture open, then the patient will be immediately having a cardiac arrest. And if the thickness is beyond 40 micron, then time required for removal of urea and creatinine will be lots of time. Typically, an adult patient will be exposed to dialysis procedure for 4.5 hours. If he is exposed for more, then again he will be developing some other complications.
And also, if you keep a patient in the bed and dialysis for about 5 hours, 6 hours, 7 hours, it's not an easy stuff.
It's not easy stuff.
Yeah.
So therefore, the spinning of the fibers, the preparation of the fibers is known as spinning. The spinning of such fibers of such stringent medical specification, geometrical specification, it is very difficult. 4 companies are having the monopoly in the whole world.
4 companies have monopoly in the whole world.
Fresenius, the German company, is the market leader, followed by Membrana USA, and one Japanese company, Nipro, and Gamro, the South Korean companies. These 4 companies are having the monopoly. And this spinneret, the machine that is used for spinning these fibers, is basically their proprietary item. It's not available in the market at all.
Achha. So even if you want to buy and spin, you cannot do that.
It's not available. So therefore, what we did, we indigenized how to prepare this. We used 2 different types of syringes. One is the insulin syringe, another is slightly larger diameter syringe, and made a special arrangement such that they will form exactly coaxial arrangement. Okay. And then we put the polymer flowing through the annular space and put water through the inner core, and water being anti-solvent to polymer. Whenever the water comes in contact with the polymer, immediately a hollow core is produced that is running along the length. That's why the hollow fiber is created, and then it is put in the gelation bath. That is basically water bath, and the outer surface of the hollow fiber gets solidified, and in a sense you will be getting a hollow fiber, solid hollow fiber, means which is basically having some strength. So that way the hollow fiber is created. And since the spinning procedure is extremely cost effective, the cost of the cartridge has been reduced completely.
How much is general cost in the market, and how much is your cost?
Yeah. Typically, this cartridge will be costing between 1,500 to 2,500 rupees based on the country of origin of the company and their country. For example, Fresenius cartridge cost around 2,500 rupees, and we have calculated that we have done an economic analysis. We have found out that our cartridge will be costing around 300 rupees.
300 rupees?
Yes.
Compared to 2,500 or 1,500 rupees. That's a substantial reduction, right? I mean, so which means that dialysis patient can have a very low cost option, and countries like let's say Africa or other places can also use this technology. But where is this technology now? I mean, is it commercially available?
No, it's not commercially available. Actually, we got a funding from Department of Science and Technology from Instrumentation Development Program to do a basic, because India does not have the spinning of the fibers technology. So we are the first group, we developed the technology, and this project was rated excellent by the Department of Science and Technology by their dialysis task force. Okay, and then they have given us a project in the second phase, where we are going to spin around 62 kilometers of such fibers, whereby we will be producing 25 such cartridges, and then those will be tested against the diabetic dog blood. So that will be the animal testing. Once that will be successful, it will go for the human trials. Then there will be approval from different regulatory boards. It will take a longer period.
It's a process that you are going on. This is let's say your major work that you are engaged right now. Then you are also trying to develop the micro spinners, right? I mean, like hollow fibers, right? So what is the technology, and why do we want to get into that technology?
Yes, these hollow fibers are basically the fibers, it's kind of dialysis fibers I am talking about, but these are larger size fibers, and they are used for several applications like wastewater treatment, water treatment, cosmetics, pharmaceutical wastewater treatment, and for different applications it has. Fruit juice treatment. Okay, so and then typically these fibers are again produced by a machine called spinneret, and a very good Japanese spinneret costs around $80,000 US.
Okay.
And the whole spinning unit it costs around 1.25 crores. So therefore, the fibers coming out of it will be expensive. Now the advantage of the hollow fibers compared to other configuration of membrane filters is that any hollow fibers, first of all, the operating pressure requirement in hollow fibers will be less. So therefore, it requires less energy. So energy cost will be reduced. Number one. Number two, any application in the hollow fiber in the laboratory scale that can be directly scaled up. Unlike the other processes, if I get some result in a small laboratory setup,
I can put a bigger one.
I can put a bigger one. It will be exactly replicate its performance. So that is the beauty of it. So again, we used 2 disposable syringes of bigger type, which will be costing 10 rupees each, and made a special arrangement which will be replacing $80,000 spin rate by a 20 rupees assembly.
Okay.
And spinning the hollow fibers from that machine, so it will becomes very cost effective, and the whole spinning unit will be costing around 1.5 lakhs in comparison to 1.25 crores. So therefore, the fibers coming out of it and the cartridges prepared out of it will be very cost effective. So that is the beauty of it. So I can give you an example. Recently, we have done a study on processing of tender coconut water, and there are processes available for membrane filtration of tender coconut water, but that is not perfect because there is something called polyphenol oxidase. There is an enzyme present in the coconut water which oxidizes the polyphenol, producing a red color into it.
Yeah.
So therefore, it cannot last long. It is aesthetically not good.
Yeah, many people who will open will think that it is become spoiled. Yeah,
It's
that's right.
spoiled. And there are certain ways to increase the shelf life. For example, one of the method is hot sterilization, exposing the water to 120 degrees centigrade for a couple of seconds. But that will kill all the bacteria, it's fine, but at the same time it will spoil the nutritional and the flavor profile of the tender coconut water.
Yeah, that won't taste like actually a coconut water.
So yes, so and they use some additives and preservatives from outside to increase its shelf life. So what we did, we developed a filter with a very stringent process distribution that removes this enzyme and enhances its shelf life tremendously, and without any additive, without any preservative, without any external chemical to it. And we are claiming that if it can be hooked up with a aseptic packaging, it can last for 18 weeks without any problem.
Okay.
And this technology is now being tested and will be transferred to Madhura Agrochemical Industries in Coimbatore, who will be taking up this technology. We have given a successful plant demonstration with our own homemade filters and fibers, and they're very happy and satisfied about it, and probably within a couple of months we can expect a technology transfer to them and an official commercialization of the technology.
Very, very interesting, and this conversation and the kind of work that you are doing is very interesting, very illuminating. Unfortunately, we don't have much time, so I'm going to just ask you one last question. I mean, as a person who is in a research institute, IIT, generally people think, and also there is a lot of criticism in the press and other places that Indian science is just aping the West. You know, we just take up problems which the Western world or the European countries take up. Is that the scene today?
It was probably earlier, but I don't think it is currently the trend nowadays. And I personally feel that doing good research does not mean that one has to do something which will be groundbreaking, which will be absolutely innovative, which will be rocket technology. There is no need for that. One can take up the indigenous problem and do require maneuvers so that whatever is required by our society, our people, that can be sorted out. For example, the arsenic problem that I talked about, we can do innovations to such a level that the technology developed can be low cost, it can reach people, it can have very high outreach capability. So I don't think that always aping West will not be giving a very good idea, and probably nowadays I don't think that is the trend. People are doing very good research in India itself. They are really looking for their own problems and looking for the solutions which can solve their own problems in their own way.
Yeah, interesting, and with this we may have to end this conversation here. Keep watching Eureka. We will come back with another interesting conversation next week, same time. Keep watching Eureka.